Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome to Audio Topsy 60s and 70s edition. We got a great classic from 1967 coming at you today. But before we start, as always, we got a little disclaimer because what we're doing here is a little bit different. It's not a classic reaction show. We are really just focusing in on song lyrics, which unfortunately means that sometimes some great riffs and solos get cut out of what we're doing here. But what we're really focusing on is the lyrics. We're doing presuppositional analysis on the lyrics. And we're looking at just lyrics that have content that are just interesting, philosophical, spiritual, religious, and that say something about the worldview of the band or the singer that we just find fascinating. So come along for the ride, and we hope you have a good time.
Hey, thank you for that, Vicki. Yeah, we're back at it again, and I don't really like surprises, to be honest with you, but I think this might be a good one. I have no idea. 1967. I couldn't even guess
Yeah.
at what this could be. But
No.
hey, speaking of Audiotopsy, that's where we're at. Last week we kind of had a misfire, and there was a tech problem with YouTube, and the video didn't launch out in time. So if you missed it, go back and check it out. We have weeks and weeks and weeks of archives of Audiotopsy where we talk about the music and we preach the gospel. Some people kind of tune in for the music part and they don't like the gospel part. No apologies there. That's what we do. We recognize the music, and we're trying to do what's called presuppositional analysis, where we find out what does the person believe. Okay. We've had some really cool episodes where we talked about Sammy Hagar when he wrote the song about the alien. What was that song called?
Love Walking In.
Love Walks. Yeah, Love Walks In. Many of you probably didn't know that was a song about alien encounters or abduction or something like that. So anyway, guys, yeah, that's what happens here. I guess we should move on with the show. And Vic, do you want to set this up?
Yep. All right. So there's a couple of down shots to this song. The one down shot is it's very long. So that required us to cut out a lot of really good instrumentation. There's just some great leads and solos.
Is it Inagata-Davida?
No, I knew you were going to think that too.
Okay.
But it's another. This one's only 11 minutes long. Kenny,
Okay.
any guesses? 11-minute song from 1967?
11 minutes, 67. Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
It sounds like
really do not have
King
any
Crimson?
idea. I mean, is it a pretty well-known group?
Prague.
It's a very well-known group.
I mean, it's got to be more well-known than the Poppy family, right?
Very, very much more. Yes.
Because I didn't know that. Although I've become a Poppy family fan now. So thank you, Tom.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it is a Doors tune.
Oh,
I bet I know the song. Maybe.
Which one?
Can I guess? Is it the end?
When the music's over.
When the music's over. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So we cut it down. There's a whole bunch of clips to get to, so we better get our rears in gear. But the lyrical content of this song has got so many things to talk about, and I apologize in advance to the audience that we have to cut out so much amazing musicianship from this song. But if this appeals to you, go check it out online, because we're just going to be doing the lyrics here. So should we dive in?
Let's go.
Right.
Ready.
When the music's over here, when the music's over, turn up the lights, turn up the lights, turn up the lights.
All right.
That's pretty straightforward.
Kills me having to cut that out. So obviously this is sort of a grand allegory for music being kind of the heart and soul of life and what's important in life. So when the song is over, there's nothing left to live for, that sort of a thing. So on a personal and a global scale, I think this song gets into more of that. So that's kind of the chorus there that we're seeing, and that'll repeat through the song. So the other verses are giving more of the deeper context.
Cool.
Very good. Well, there's lots to talk about here when it comes to the Doors and Jim Morrison and company. So I haven't thought about this song, in a while, but I'll be interested to get back into it and look at the lyrics a little closer, because when you said it was when the music's over, the first thing I thought was turn out the lights, because I knew that part. But yeah. And there's another line, when music is your special friend. I don't know, something along those lines. I'll try not to sing along anyway.
It's cool. Classic Doors.
When the music's over, when the music's over, when the music's over, turn up the lights, turn up the lights, turn up the lights. When the music is your special friend, dance on fires, it intends. Music is your only friend. Until the end, until the end, until the
Trippy.
Whoa, man.
It's cool.
Before I dive into the line, music is your only friend, because there's something there. I'm just curious between the two of you, Jim Morrison, Chris Cornell. Which one? Who's the master?
Who's the master?
Who's the vocal master? I mean, man.
You know what? To me, I have a hard time choosing that, because Morrison had his own kind of thing, and his you knew it was him right off the bat. To be distinctive stuff. Chris Cornell, probably technically a better singer, could do a little more range, but they're similar but different, man. I couldn't choose on that. I mean, I like them both. So
yeah, that's a tough one. I like them both for different reasons.
Yeah, I do
that
too.
Baritone voice of Jim Morrison's is just one of a kind. But then again, Glenn Danzig sounded a lot like Jim Morrison. I actually have a friend, Randy Rose, who sounds like he sings some songs and it sounds like Jim Morrison singing Christian songs.
Wow.
So and he also sounds like Glenn Danzig singing Christian songs.
Man,
I feel like I would lean towards Chris, but just because Jim seems just so dark and sad and fatalistic, just not in a good place. Of course, we know what happened to him, and both of these guys died at a very young age. Very sad. So to get into the belief of either one of them, especially Jim Morrison.
I got a question, Vicki. So when you with this song, and so we're doing a lot of like I said, we're having to cut out a lot of the music stuff, but I to me the music is so important to what the vibe what they're going on with. When you hear this song, if you played a different tonality of chords, the song would not have anywhere near the same effect. So the Doors were really, really good at adding this this kind of minor sad ambiance. So like this emo, that to the A. That's a very common 60s psychedelic thing. I love that chord progression there. But I love when it goes flat 7 major to E. It's a great chord progression, very chill. Not my favorite Doors song, but I like it.
Yeah. Well, you know, the 1980s kind of, it was this like explosion of like, remember the synthesizer, and like you had all like Van Halen Jump and all that stuff, and like the synthesizer became like this crucial rock band instrument all of a sudden. But I mean, the Doors had that going on so way before them, and I know Floyd and Iron Butterfly and other people did as well, and the Beatles had a little bit of it, but the keyboard player for the Doors was just absolutely amazing. And wasn't he kind of double dutying bass as well?
Yeah, he was left-hand bass and a lot of stuff too. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that yeah, it's incredible. I mean,
the Doors didn't have an actual bass player. He played it with his other his other hand.
Yeah.
You know, so far lyrically there's not been a lot said. But there's a lot of emotion in this, and I feel like there's something being said there. Obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, Jim Morrison, before he was a singer, he was a filmmaker and he was a poet. And I don't think really set out to be a singer at all. It just kind of happened by accident. So it's, you know, the whole body of work, when you look at some of this stuff, you know, I mean, for anybody that listens to, you know, Light My Fire, Riders on the Storm, some of these songs are just kind of they're, you know, they're singles or radio songs or whatever. But then when the music's over, the end, you know, these crazy songs, and we can talk about the end in you know, connection to a couple different things. Because there's some Freudian type of philosophy in there, or belief, and there was in Pink Floyd as well. So anyway, obviously, you know, as we analyze this, we there's a lot of dark stuff, a lot of secular, you know, philosophy. Go ahead, Ken. You got your hand up.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Dunn. Hey, I gotta ask a question right here, because when the lyrics, I don't want to skip over this part, but when it goes for the music is your special friend, dance on fire as it intends. What is it? What is it? Music? What is because to me there's a connotation there. Dance on fire as it intends.
Yeah.
Then it comes with music as your only friend. I mean, there's something else there. There's
until the end. That's to me, that's really sad.
Yeah,
if music is your only friend. I like music. I love music, but I hope there's more.
Whatever.
That's kind of exactly, you guys are hitting it right on the head now as to why I picked this song, as far as analyzing lyrics from a biblical perspective, the way a Christian would filter this. Obviously, music is extremely important to a Christian. Worship is a prime component to, you know, belief in God. And we know that there's power in music. And Kenny, you got some great information about frequency and some of the more spiritual dynamics of that. We know that the voice of God spoke the world into existence. There's things there.
Yeah.
But by way of like an idolatry point of view, I love music too. And I understand its power. And I know that there were certain bands that got me through high school, gets you through a breakup. You know, the music has, we can transcend our emotion if there's something we connect to. It is very powerful. It was created originally by God. But when you're saying it in the context, the framework of what Morrison's saying here, man, if at the end of the day, all I have is my CD collection to get me through life, that is really pathetic.
No.
And Vic, I know people that live life like this. And I've known people who were Christians who worship music.
Yeah.
Okay. Secular music. and it gripped their heart so much that it drug them down. I can think of 3 people right now that I knew pretty close, and it took them away from the Lord and took them into the world.
Yeah.
I can tell you from my experience, and look, I love music. I mean, music is basically how I make my living, and teaching and all these things. But I can say this, that when I became a Christian and found Christ, that was my center of stuff. Music to me, I could do without. I don't need it. To me, I have my center on the Lord. And I will tell you, this is some things I see with kids these days. This song is so relevant now from, it's over 50 years ago, 55 years ago. So what's interesting to me is that I'll tell you a little story. Yesterday, I was teaching a student, and he had AirPods on. And at one moment, I realized that he was listening to music while I was talking to him in his head. And the parent, I looked at him, and I thought, I got like this, and I said, but this is what's good. Kids literally at this point now will block out reality with music. They walk around all day long with their AirPods in. They never take them out of their ears. They're not even focusing on any of the reality, and they're hearing stuff. And I'm telling you, as a kid, if you didn't have Christ as your center of your stuff, and you were hearing a lyric like this telling you, guess what, man? Music is your only friend. There's no mention of Jesus. There's no mention of God. There's no mention of anything like that. People can fall for that. I mean, especially young, impressionable kids. They can listen to it and say, you're right. Because I've seen people get so caught up with certain music and artists and stuff, and it is an idol, and it takes away from their Christian life. So, I mean, it really is. Even when I read, I was like, wow, man, that's a lot deeper than I think people think about it.
I'll tell you what, I got a story about that, and we'll get into it in a little bit. It's directly connected to the Doors. So, and how it had a bad effect on my life, actually. So anyway, why don't we get into more of the song? Or Vic, you got something to say?
Yeah, one more thing. By way of this Kenny, like what's the it in this song? We as Christians, we talk a lot about how there's a difference between music and worship. And we talk about how, when we leave church on a Sunday morning, that worship was really good, as opposed to what we're really talking about there is whether or not we connected to it, and that the Spirit of God was upon it and filled the room with his presence, right? And so it's naive of us to think that if music has the capacity to catch and transmit a spirit, then it has the ability to catch and transmit evil spirits as well. And so when we are captivated by music to the point where it is what we go to regulate our emotions and get through trials, and like prayer is over here, it's our last resort. I guess all I have to do now is pray. When the playlist becomes the altar, we have to understand that music is catching and transmitting a spirit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my frequency stuff I'm doing, that is the biggest thing that I've come across, is that God created frequency. I mean, that's just it. He created all stuff, but it can be used just like we have free will. We can choose things to be good or bad. Same thing with frequencies and stuff. And it's there. It's very powerful. I mean, you can take a song with a certain type of chord progression and emit emotion to people that they can be manipulated and don't even realize it. Be brought to you can, and everybody's had this happen. Have a song that the song itself might not even be a great song, but you've tied it to an emotion of something, like a friend or somebody that's passed. That part is there, and that can affect you for many years afterwards.
I'm so glad you just used the word manipulates, because I've been saying this for years, and people just give me the eye roll. But like, one of my pet peeves is in church when they're giving an altar call. Like the word of God is a powerful two-edged sword. The Spirit, and there's not anybody responding and nobody's coming forward. So that one guy runs up and starts playing the keyboard softly in the background. Like, I find that manipulative, because
it is.
We can be moved then by the music and be carried forward for that. And then we have to question things later, like what was motivating me. And at least that's the kind of stuff that happens to me. But I'll tell you a quick, tiny little story. I was on a mission trip once, And the women that I was with seemed to think that I was not in the right place spiritually, because every time we visited the orphanages, I wasn't crying. I wasn't coming home sobbing and crying. It just wasn't, I had a different level of hope, and I was just viewing things differently. I wasn't to the point where God can't help these kids. It just wasn't where I was at. And so
Right.
they literally held like a, what do you call it? Like when an intervention. Literally before we went to the orphanage one morning, they all sat around me and were laying hands on me to like, what, give me a spirit of crying? I don't know. And it was so overly dramatic. And
Wow.
then I wouldn't respond properly. You guys, this is crazy. And this was many years ago. One of the women got up and went and got her little old Sony Walkman and put her headphones on my head and was holding them there and like blasting this like gospel music. And I'm like, this is the most manipulative thing. So music can absolutely be used to manipulate, even within the Christian circles with Christian music. So
that's,
Yeah,
what you
you're-
said is fascinating, and I think it needs to be explored sometime, because we can talk about scenarios where people show up in churches and they're like, oh, you're not behaving this way, you're not displaying this gift, so you must not be whatever, saved or spirit filled or something like that.
yeah.
That's definitely a thing, and I've seen it. So yeah.
Mm.
And you kind of got me thinking, just about music and manipulation in church. I've definitely been moved by music, and when I'm praising God and there's songs, you know what I'm saying? And I like the idea of using music to communicate. You know what I'm saying? And there are ideas in music. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but how should I? I don't like a lot of the modern worship music, and it's just kind of weird. Some of it, is okay, but you could take, a song like "It Is Well with My Soul" or "Amazing Grace" or something like that, where you're getting a lot of doctrine and theology in a song versus, a verse. And there's so many people that have tuned in to hear about the Doors, right? And here we are talking about worship.
I just put some light music behind Tom Dunn speaking just there, and it actually created more. I almost cried.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably
All right.
this is something we could talk about worship, okay? And we should do a show about that, Vic. But
yeah, definitely.
The importance of worship. And you know what? I think I don't know how I feel about this, because music moves me. You know what I'm saying? I was listening to For Today, which is a Christian hardcore band today, on the way to the gym and as I'm running errands. And dude, I mean, it gets me excited. It gets me pumped, right? There's certain type of music I like to listen to when I'm working out. Okay. And there's, you know what? There's a certain type of music that I like to listen to before I go speak at a conference. Okay. And it kind of
Taylor Swift. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I can see Tom driving in his car listening to some good Swifty stuff.
Is this getting played out yet or not? I don't think.
That will never.
No.
Dude,
you guys will not quit. You guys will not quit. Okay, that's fair.
I'm with you, man. I can get down some Taylor Swift. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
I'm here for you.
Let's get back to when the music's over.
Cancel my subscription to the resurrection.
Ooh. Ouch.
Send my credentials to the house of detention. I got some friends inside. The face in the mirror won't stop. The girl in the window won't drop. A feast of friends, alive she cried, waiting for me outside.
Ooh. Whole lot there.
Ah,
Right off the bat. Yeah, that's a good one.
that opening line kind of proved our point.
Oh gosh. Yeah, cancel my subscription to the Resurrection. Oh.
Because I got a Doors album, man. Who needs salvation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
When the music is your special friend.
Oof.
Yeah. Send my credentials to the house of detention. I got some friends inside. Wow. You know, Jim Morrison in a lot of ways was an abstract poet. You know, I mean, you could read a lot of stuff. It's like, what is he talking about? The blue bus is calling us. What is he talking about? You know,
I'm the Lizard King.
Yeah, I am the Lizard King.
Yeah, I'm the Lizard King. Yeah.
Obviously, the drug use probably played a part in this. I mean, they're
a little.
They what were they using? Acid, peyote, going out to the desert, trying to find a vision, you know, riding the snake, okay? The killer woke before dawn. He put his boots on. So and he took a face from the ancient gallery, right? So all of that stuff. And the question is, it's almost like there's just there's one-liners, you know, that he put together in a bingo machine and just pulled them out and like, okay, this fits, this fits. I mean, I don't know.
How dare you?
You know, one time I remember this happened in the 90s. There was a lady, like a psychic somewhere, who said she channeled Jim Morrison and she wrote a book of poetry. Remember that?
Yeah.
And she wrote she claimed it was Jim Morrison that wrote the poetry. She channeled Jim. Jim was speaking to her from beyond the grave, and maybe it was the spirit, okay, that followed Jim around or that influenced Jim.
It's the same familiar spirit.
Yeah, but anyway,
wow.
Would that be kind of like the Jesus Calling? Would it be Jim Calling? That'd be his books.
I don't know what the name of the book was, but
yeah, I need more inspiration. I need a devotion.
If you hear anybody,
man, where's that Jim Morrison devotional you have?
I want that. Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. I will just say musically about that little section. I love the unexpected paradox where he crescendos in his voice way up there. So you expect the music then to kick in and then the music goes down, like it settles things back down again. Like it's not expected. I like the
you know, they were definitely trying to create an atmosphere in their concerts, and they were experimenting. You know, one thing that that people might know about Jim Morrison is he would do experiments in concerts, and he would go to somebody else's concert. He would get a few people in on this, and he would try to turn the crowd against the band.
Oh man.
And he would get people in certain spots and then start like you know, kind of chanting or revolting against the band. And the band might have been a good band, but he was trying to see. And, you know, I don't have this vetted out, but I've heard this. Okay. I've heard it several times. I'm assuming this is true. And then he would try to turn the crowd against the band.
Oh, it's the Andy Kaufman of music.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, and I'm going to tell you, just as we listen to the song, I'll show you something. Like this song is in basically E minor, but it's also not. When you hear the song, like a straight E minor scale, right? There's the stuff. It's got a C in it, but he's got a song that goes, he puts a C sharp and he's doing E minor into A major. So this is technically what's called an E Dorian mode. I know it's a little more people most want to know, but it invokes a different flavor than straight E minor. If this song went, that's a natural minor sound, and it has a little sing. But he's given this, there's a slight lift. It doesn't stay completely, it's not completely dark. There's a little bit of a tonal difference there, and I think it makes the entire song work on the level they're trying to do it at. I don't know if that was on purpose. Probably the keyboard player understood that and knew let's make this chord a major chord instead of minor, and it adds a lot to the whole feel as they go along with it. The dynamics make a big deal, but even the chord and the sounds and the scale they're using, I'm like, it's pretty brilliant.
So some people might say that I don't necessarily think this, but some people might say, well, these guys had an agenda. They were trying to mess with people, musically, emotionally. And there was some stuff going on there that people didn't understand why they liked it or what was happening to them while they were listening, especially if they were high. Then that takes it to another level. But even if you're not, I think this music and the music of the Doors can be mesmerizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what? It's kind of interesting because the Doors, I mean, it's hard to pigeonhole them as a straight sound. They'd have stuff like Riders on the Storm, stuff like this, that were kind of these gloomy kind of, and then they had stuff like, Roadhouse Blues, da, 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 and had this rockin' sound to it. Light My Fire has all this classical elements done with the organ sound. It's so, I mean, they had a lot of different music. I mean,
break on through to the other side.
Break on through, man. There's so much stuff that you're just like, and I think that's probably what the appeal to them was, is that they didn't really sound like anybody else at the time. It was the sound of the times, but it was also pretty original,
Yeah, very original, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, you guys ready to listen to some more?
Yep, let's go.
Before I sing into the big sleep, I want to hear the scream of the butterfly.
All right. I looked up the Scream of the Butterfly because obviously that didn't make sense to me. The Scream of the Butterfly was a reference to a 1965 movie of the same name, where a beautiful woman marries a rich man for his money, then embarks on an affair and plans to use her boyfriend to help murder her husband. So why he wants to hear the Scream of the Butterfly, I don't know. Maybe if I saw the movie, it would make more sense to me. But that is a reference to that movie.
I had heard, and what you said makes sense. I had heard that the Scream of the Butterfly was a reference to a movie, but it was like a pornographic movie. So what you said makes sense. The information that I had never heard that before, but
maybe in 1965 that was considered.
Yeah, maybe it was.
Oh,
there we go. Well, there you go. I guess. Look at this. Yeah.
Ooh,
that's racy.
Yeah,
it is. Who could resist the Scream of the Butterfly?
Whoa,
interesting.
Well,
we could go a whole other realm of stuff here too, with the butterfly thing, Mono, MK Ultra, that kind of stuff. That's, hey man, the time period of that, this is, that was being released out, and it could have been used. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of crazy theories out there, and I mean, some of them are really wild. I mean, you can go down a deep rabbit hole with the Beatles and the Tavistock Institute. It'll, well, do I believe it? I don't know, man. It's interesting. It's fun to read about. I think that at the time we just don't know. They could have been the Doors and a lot of these bands could have been being used to manipulate the masses with certain types of coded words and different things. I mean, I wouldn't put it past anything. That's my thought.
Don't forget, Jim Morrison's dad was a high-ranking military officer.
Yeah.
Yep. As were many of those 60s artists.
Yes. kind of interesting how they just all ended up on the same street in in the same area in California. I guess the Doors were from Venice Beach, but a lot of them ended up in Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
So
Well, and especially when you look at the words of Jim Morrison himself and the angst he had. I mean, he leaves the country. He goes to France. He wants to establish himself as a poet. He wanted to be a poet. He did not like how he was turned into kind of like the pretty boy pinup. Like that's not the persona he did. So it's not even like today where the guys go out to LA to make it big in the music business. Like it doesn't seem to me like this is something he necessarily had a direct hand in.
Yeah. Let's carry on because I don't know how much more we have left.
Yeah, we got more.
Okay. 18 minutes.
Come back, baby, back into my arms. We're getting tired of hanging around. Waiting around with our heads to the ground. I hear a very gentle sound. Very near yet very far. Very soft yet very clear. Come today, come today.
Thinking back to the part we heard before I go into the big sleep, we're getting tired of hanging around. And if you watch the movie The Doors, which in the year that I graduated, I probably saw it 10 times.
Whoa.
Yeah. Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. He really nailed that, buddy.
They were, Jim Morrison was frustrated. He just wanted more. He didn't want to start a band. He wanted to start a revolution. For what? I don't know. It didn't seem like he even knew. Yeah. But he wanted to, I don't know how to word this. He wanted to make a difference, but that's not right. Like just there was something, and I don't know how much of the film is accurate and how much of the dialogue script was. He's like, come on, let's make the myths. Let's start a cult. Let's do something. And, obviously he was involved with people, involved in cult. He was definitely into the native, American mysticism, things like that. So
I think that honestly, a lot of what he was going through and stuff it wasn't necessarily he knew what was going on. I think he just was just like a lot of people, they want to make a difference in something and be relevant, that they're not just here. And I don't think it was one of these things of like, he wasn't sure what he really wanted to be relevant about. It's just he wanted to leave a mark. He wanted to do something, and that's a very almost self-centered thing of, I want to make sure people do remember me when I'm gone. I don't care what it's for. This is what's going on with it, and it's very much kind of against anything with the gospel itself, where it's very me-centered and it's not centered on Christ. You're not thinking about that stuff. It's like, what can I do for myself? And I don't know if that was something he meant on purpose. I just think he was like kind of lost in this way of, he really wanted to know the truth, but what was it? And, when you start to get all those drugs and stuff going on with it, man, it's just a cluster of, thoughts. But I always think that stuff, I look at it, because like you said, you don't know what he wanted to do. He was like, let's start a cult, or let's do these things. It was more like, what can we do to be relevant in this turmoil time of the late 60s, man? I mean, it was a crazy time period. I don't remember it because I was not born yet. I was very young.
And the whole Vietnam thing going on that had the
That's
country
right.
divided, and there was a lot of, in many ways, a lot of kind of what we're going through now, where the country's divided on political issues, and it creates angst and chaos and
Right.
probably spiritual confusion then as well.
Yeah.
I was in, oh man, what grade would I have been in? Probably 8th grade, summer, before or after. I was in California and visiting family. I remember they had MTV, and on MTV, where they were celebrating some kind of anniversary of the Doors. I was probably about 14 years old, and just kind of picking up on this, and had started to get an interest in the Doors, right? And a few years later, when I was 18, graduating from high school, the movie The Doors came out, and just the trailer to that movie, Oliver Stone film, was just amazing. Okay, it came out in theaters. We probably skipped school to go see it, and then it was in the Dollar Theater, and who knows how many times we watched the movie. Okay, and it's I was really torn, because just the kind of the how do I want to describe Jim Morrison? He became an influence or a hero to me in a way. Just his reckless abandon. You know what I'm saying? And for some reason that appealed to me when I was that age, and I was torn, because I was trying to serve God, and this music was coming into my life, and music was having an influence. And watching these things about his life, I was never tempted to do drugs or anything like that, and I never did. But the music, the power of the music, had an influence. And then there is a message connected to the music, and it definitely how should I say, derailed me, got me distracted, took me places that I shouldn't go. And it didn't, it wasn't for that long, but I definitely recognized it, and I definitely repented. And I can remember the place and the night and the day, and the circumstances, and realizing what an influence it had on me. But it's there's power in it, and this music from the past. And if you got to think, that was 89, it was only 20 years old at the time, right? So which is kind of interesting. So anyway, just a testimony to the power of music, and what it can do if you allow it. And I, at the time, my foundation wasn't the greatest. Okay. And if I would have been stronger, I could have avoided that trap.
Well, I think you kind of perfectly encapsulated that earlier line of dancing on fire as it intends. We know that this stuff is very powerful, and garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, we become, to a degree, what we're absorbing all day long. And so music does have this incredible power, and it is like dancing in the fire, because you can get burned by this stuff. And if, three verses later, you're canceling the resurrection, there's probably some foreshadowing there about what happens when you are dancing in the fire with, asbestos pants on.
A lot of these lyrics are not really, you may not know exactly what they mean. The scream of the butterfly, dance on fire, when the music's over, then they have the one line. Okay. The song is, what I'm saying, the bait, and then the hook is the one line, or that's, and basically you have to use a word from the song. You might like the song, but you are compromising, or you're subscribing to canceling your subscription to the resurrection. and that's what he's asking you to do. And that's the Pied. He's the Pied Piper leading you down that direction. So how many? I mean, how many Christians or how many people between 1967 when this song came out since then have been influenced by these things? And if the time is right and the mood is right and you're having doubt and this song comes on or you put this song on, you know, the enemy is whispering in your ear and he's using this as a tool to like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. Man, maybe my life will be a lot easier if I just canceled my subscription to the resurrection. In other words, deny Christ.
Yeah.
It's a lie.
I will say this. It's really interesting because a lot of the lyrics in here seem to have a lot of meaning until this section right here that we just listened to. It almost sounds like Morrison got bored and just started going, hanging around the ground. Gentle sound. It's like all of a sudden it's kind of like, okay, he's lost his train of thought. Like he's kind of going along, and then he goes very near yet very far, very soft yet very clear. Come today. It's almost like he was just kind of like, and this could be possible situation with this. If he was writing this under a certain influence of drugs or even channeling something, we don't know what kind of creative type spirit went on with it. But it seems like for a second there, he's just kind of free floating. And then he comes back really hard right after the section. It's like everything with this little section. It's kind of like, and the music changes a little bit too. It gets a little Latin-y during that section. It's kind of, they do a little bit more stuff on it. I was just like, okay, the lyrics here are rambly. They're very rambly right here. And then he starts to come back the next section, which you'll hear. I think it means a little more, but
I totally agree with you, Kenny, and I'm just speculating here, but this song was something that they did live before it ever was recorded. So they were like the house band for Whiskey A Go Go, I think, in LA. And they would play this online and they would play it live and it would be like 11, 12, 13 minutes long. And I was thinking the same thing, that by that point, you know, maybe the alcohol or the drugs kicked in and they're doing this long psychedelic solo.
That's right.
I'm thinking like being a poet myself, that's the part where he's like, oh crap, what rhyme? Sad. Now I'm mad. Like it's like he's like kind of like crap. I love myself.
No, I get it because I've played in bands where we'd be like real excited about something we wrote, like had great music, and we'd be live and be like, we don't even know what this song's called yet or what it's about, but we'd throw it up there and you would watch sometimes how the crowd reacted to what you were singing to know, hey, this works. And you're really just throwing stuff against the wall. Let's see what sticks.
Yeah.
But that's a live aspect. And I felt like that was a big part of what the Doors did. A lot of their stuff came from that atmosphere of improvisation, live, just singing. So, you know, that section right there is kind of a wah, wah, not that great a section, but it's in the middle. He's like, okay, man, it's all right. The other stuff around it is, you know, here's my crap sandwich right in the middle of this of my good stuff.
Agreed.
All right, let's pick it up.
Let's do it.
When the music's over.
What have they done to the earth?
There we go.
There we go.
What have they done to our fair sister? Ravaged and plundered and ripped her and bit her. Stuck her with knives in the side of the dawn and tied her with fences and dragged her down. I hear a very gentle sound. With your ear down to the ground. We want the world and we want it. We want the world and we want it. Now.
That's crazy. Section, man. I don't know. To me, it feels like they improv that and pulled it off, but man, that's a strong section right there.
So here we have Music is your special friend. It's going to you're canceling the resurrection.
Right.
Then you kind of got a little bit of mental illness kick after your rebirth. Gaia worship, the earth.
Yeah.
Let's see the earth.
Yeah,
Let's see
you're right. Yeah.
we got to keep the earth alive so the music won't die. That's the solution.
I actually ran into somebody the other day that is a Gaia worshiper, literally. Real thing. And it's been around for a long time. So I was because it's been so long since I've heard this song. I'm like, okay, Our Fair Sister, what's he talking about? And then so, and we, again, the people that he associated with stuff, I don't know how much he really cared about a whole lot of things, there's a line in the movie like, it just seemed like, and that was kind of his attitude about everything. So
yeah. All right. I don't know how many more little sections we have, but
we want to hear it now. Yeah.
Subscription, freak out, realize you maybe needed the subscription back.
That's it. By the end of the song, wait a minute, I think I messed up here.
So yeah, I never knew that was in the song.
Yeah,
I never recognized what he was screaming there.
It's a neat travel. I mean, the song is a journey, man.
It is.
It's you're going through it, and I'd almost forgotten that when I was like, oh my gosh, he does say Jesus in this song.
Yeah,
and he's crying out, man. There's no, it literally is. It's almost like you get through that Gaia worship we love. And then it's like save us, and he's Jesus, man. After everything, so,
I wonder if it's the same Jesus.
I don't know.
It's hard to tell. People make their own Jesus all the time, man.
But he did say Persian night, which I think is a reference to the Magi who came to the stable.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Interesting.
See the light, babe.
Yeah, the star. Yeah, babe.
See the light, babe. Yeah. No, it's powerful, man. When it gets there, you're just like, it's one of those things I look at it and say, no matter what way he meant for it, when he said Jesus, it's very powerful there. Whether it was I don't think he was being facetious there either. It feels like he's genuinely really crying out for something. And I think that it's pretty interesting that out of all the things he could have said, he said Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, and then we got to take into account, the idea of universalism.
Yep.
And,
no, that's true.
Polytheism, right? Yeah. So, and obviously the living Christ, the true Christ, is not going to share his lordship with Gaia, with these other spirits, with, the other things going on. Of course,
yeah.
I mean, we can say, hey, it comes from an honest place, okay, but it doesn't make it okay, or it doesn't make it real, or it doesn't make it,
Sure.
Yeah, he's not willing. He needs to cancel a subscription to Gaia first, and then,
Yeah, no, I get you. Well, you know what? That's the same thing today, man. I know personal people that I love these people, man, but their idea of Christianity is completely wrong. They're all Richard Rohr and enneagrams and all this other stuff that gets this new agey, where they're making Jesus to be whatever they want Jesus to be, and that's that's some scary stuff. And I mean, I think some people, they have good intentions, they just haven't figured it out yet. And I think that's something everybody has to come to grips with themselves, is to realize that, you can't create Jesus in your image. That's the biggest thing that people are doing wrong these days.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, we're so many thousands of years removed from the Psalms that we tend to read all of them like they're beautiful. And David was a man after God's own heart. This guy was raging. Like, this was the Jim Morrison of antiquity, right? Like, if you put the poetry of King David to like this song, where you raged at the right places. I mean, there's Psalms, where the psalmist is like, why do the wicked succeed? Why do the wicked prosper? How come I'm doing righteous stuff and I'm not prospering? But then I went to the temple and I remembered. And so I would think that if you had contextually put the Psalms of David into modern music, that there'd be a lot of Christians who would be really uncomfortable with what David was saying and not wanting their kids listening to it.
True.
Because he's raging quite honestly and bluntly through a lot of that. He's got some fist shaking. The reason that David was a man after God's own heart wasn't that he shook the fist, but that after he shook the fist, he was like, but I realize that you've been faithful before, you'll be faithful again. Like, he was able to talk himself off that ledge and come back to a theological conclusion.
Yeah, that's some of my favorite stuff in the Bible, is the things that remind you when you've gone through those periods where you're like, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to, and this person over here is succeeding in life, and they don't, and they're not doing it, and you're just like, how can this be? And I think some of the best, because it's that turnaround of, you get it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm focusing on the wrong things.
Yep. Going
on with it. That's real, and that stuff, I mean, as old as it is relevant right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, sounds like we need to take some of those and put them to some Door songs.
I'm totally all for that, man. That'd be awesome.
I wonder if Apologetics has already done it. I'm sure
Probably.
they have
That's
a Door
okay.
parody.
Well,
True.
They haven't gotten it from the Vicki Joy Kenny project yet.
That's right. And they're more like metal, and I'm seeing more like soul and blues, and I'm seeing a different genre here.
I do too.
Okay.
I think we've got something planned.
How much more we got? We got any more of this?
15 minutes. No. The song goes
longer.
On forever.
When the music's over, when the music's over, yeah. When the music's over, turn out the lights, turn out the lights, turn out the lights. Well, the music is your special friend, and some fires it intense. Music is your only friend. Till the end, until the end, until the
end. I'm actually surprised he remembered what he was even singing about. I didn't know. Like, he went so many places. I'm surprised he made it back to the beginning.
I know. And it's depressed. I mean, musically, it's cool that it came full circle.
Yeah.
But lyrically, it's depressing because he's like, Persian night, see the light, Jesus save us, Jesus save us. And then it's like back to like, but music's your special friend. Mm-hmm. It's like, dang, man, what a letdown.
But,
yeah.
You know, I've been talking about Francis Schaeffer a lot. I love Francis Schaeffer.
Mm.
He talked about this ideology, okay, that people had. And, you know, the drug culture of the 60s, a lot of these kids believed if everybody did drugs, You know what I'm saying? That it would solve all the world's problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they really believe this.
Mm-hmm.
And I see some of that kind of coming, coming through here. You know, music is the answer. Music is is your special friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I see people, I don't know if you've ever been to a record store recently, but from time to time, I go there and I find what I call buried treasure. But the people in there, I just the way they worship music, and they just get like kind of goofy over records. Like it's just music. It's just music. And music is as cool as music is, and I believe it was created by God. And we use it, to worship him. That's the number one thing that it should be used for. Okay. But it's just music. Now, I like music. I like story songs. And a music is a poem set to music. A song is a poem set to music. But and I'm not going to deny that there are a lot of people that made some really good music. I mean, if we're honest, the devil made some good music, right? He influenced these people, and they did it, in his name. And we could make a list of all those people. And Jim Morrison, would be on that list. Obviously, he's not doing it for the Lord. So it's just, I don't know. It's sad. It's sad. It's very passionate, super emotional, a little bit vague, in some areas. I agree with what you guys were saying, just about, okay, there's just this kind of rambling in this area.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let me ask you something, Tom.
Yeah.
And when you're in the record store, what's the average age of the people in there?
The average age, I would say, are older people, because people are going for nostalgia, but there are sometimes younger people. Now, my son goes with me. He's 16 years old.
Yeah.
And we love sharing, music and talking about music. My son is into the number one artist that my son is into is Hank Williams. And
cool.
He knows more about Hank Williams than I do. And he, anyway, that's another story.
Good parenting. That's really good. You know what? I'm just gonna say this. That time period people grew up there. That was the medium that took people away from real life. The music. They could sit down and put their headphones on or whatever, do that stuff. That's not as much today, man. For kids today, man, it's video games. Because I teach music, so kids come in here sometimes, and you'll talk to them and say, "What's our music listen to?" And they literally don't listen to music. They don't realize they're listening, but they know video game music or they know stuff in the background. They don't even realize it. You're like, okay, there's a song behind, Minecraft, and trust me, I go to look for it because I try to find things that will motivate these kids to play something. And it's silly to go onto it, but that's the time period. Again, I think the medium changes. It was like, film and music and all that. And it's still there, but for younger people, it's changed a lot now into this different format of stuff that they worship.
Yeah.
Well, and
what's that?
Well, I was going to say, Klaus Schwab, what's he say? In 10 or 15 years, you will own nothing and be happy. And when we think of music that's come out in the last 10 years, the formats, it's invisible music. You can't hold it in your hand, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Same thing in a way with films. You stream everything. You don't go buy DVDs. Those are going out. And we could say the same thing with books, although I think maybe people, like books more than anything. But a lot of people are listening to audiobooks. It's just more convenient. You can multitask when you're doing that.
But what's fascinating to me, Tom, if you go read comment sections on YouTube and Instagram, and if you're reading the content, the younger generations who didn't participate in the more tactile environment of music and film and fashion, young people are are nostalgic for an era they never lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened a little bit to us, because I know I loved 60s music. I loved 60s rock when I was in high school, but there is this understanding amongst the young people who never lived through the 80s that was like the time to have been on the planet. And so it's funny, they're moving us further and further away from that. But even the young people who are embracing the current culture, even a lot of them, if they had their way, they'd be like, if I had a time machine, I'd go back to the 80s. So I don't necessarily know that anyone is embracing the progress in this area. We all want to go back.
Well, there, as far as music media, vinyl is making a comeback, and it has been for years. For whatever reason, I don't know. You know, yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't like the music that comes out today. So there's so much music that came out. You know, the song that we did last week, Where Evil Grows, never heard of that before. And I found it in a box of records, and I just because of the name, I'm like, okay, this is kind of strange. The Poppy Family, Where Evil Grows, what is this about? And it turned out that it was, you know, kind of a really neat song. Kenny's got his hand up again, Vic. Let him go.
Put him out of his misery.
I don't remember what I was saying now. Let's go.
Oh.
Okay. I'll think of it eventually. Go ahead, Vicki. Go with it.
All right. Just play a riff.
Play a riff. What do you want to hear? You go. We'll all sing along. There we go.
Yeah, so anyway, there's so much that we could talk about when it comes to Jim Morrison, the Doors, the drug use, psychedelic, crazy, just 60.
Let's think about this for a second. When we talk about drugs in the 60s were very different from what's happening today. Drugs back then were like, people like smoked some weed, they had LSD, and they had these psychedelic things, right? And yesterday, or this week, I was catching up on some 5 and 10 Skywatch, Derek Gilbert, and he was talking about this drug Trank. That's the big thing now, where they're putting horse tranquilizer with fentanyl, and the people are becoming literal zombies. I watched a video and was like, it's completely frightening, man. There people are like, and I'm like, where did we make that transition from? That was like, hey man, peace and love, to I want my skin to drop off of my. They were talking to a guy whose finger completely just fell off, and he didn't know when. When did your finger fall off? I don't know. And they walk around like zombies. Literally, where they put the drugs in them is dying. They're getting their skin. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen. And I looked at it and was like, we literally have a zombie apocalypse going on in that kind of drugs.
How come
it's a whole different world than from where we came from?
How come the kids can take horse tranquilizers, but the Patriots can't?
Hey,
wait a minute, man. That's not tranquilizer.
Cut that out. You're going to get us.
Dewormer. You know why? Because they are lying to people that stuff tastes like green apple. That's all I'm going to say. Horses are being lied to. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh goodness,
guys! Thanks for hanging out with us. We do this almost every week. We've done a lot. I've lost track of how many shows we've done. Probably maybe close to 30 plus Audio Topsy shows.
Wow.
Where you are getting just the expertise of Kenny C and Vicki Joy and Tommy D on music. Like, yeah. We're just going to tell you how it is. Actually, hey, we're just giving you our opinion. We want to know what your opinion is. What do you think about this music? What do you think about what we have to say? And what do you think about Jim Morrison and canceling his subscription to the Resurrection? I think he should have kept that subscription open, especially in light of what happened to him ultimately. Very sad. Very, very sad. But anyway, closing remarks, Vicki Joy and Kenny.
Oh man, not really. It was poignant what you just said. I mean, what was he, 27? I mean, that's for the music to be over at 27. That's absolutely tragic.
Wow.
Obviously,
so young, and in a way, he was wise beyond his years, and I think that's why he was so troubled.
Yeah.
Very much. Was it 27? Is that the club, the 27?
Yeah.
Club?
The 27 or the 28 club? I can't remember.
Something in that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 27.
Janis Joplin, all of them fall into that.
Hendrix,
Yeah.
Cobain.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I can speculate, but to me, there's something about taking these people and them dying so young that it kind of immobilizes they stay that way for the rest of their life for people.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't go like, you're watching your heroes get old and die is a lot different than that person passing at this age when they were at the top of their thing, and that's where they're left at. And sometimes you wonder if that's on purpose.
Yeah.
But
it makes them immortal in a way.
It makes them immortal. It really does. And you see that with a lot of that stuff. So very interesting. That could be a whole other show.
Absolutely.
No kidding.
Absolutely.
Hey everyone, don't forget Out of the Darkness conference coming up in just a few weeks, in about a month. Anyway, March 31st, April 1st, we're all going to be there. There's going to be more people there. It's Out of the Darkness, and great ministry is going to take place. We hope you guys can make it out for that. Throughtheblack.com is where you can find the tickets for that. Don't forget, tomorrow night Pastor Sean is going to be back, Supernatural Saturdays, and Vicki Joy and I will be back on Monday. We will see you guys later. Bye. Show's over, guys.
Why are you here?
Kenny, why are they watching?
I don't know.
We're done.
It's done.
We're done.
It's over. Please.
It's not nothing more tonight. Yeah. Guys, shut it off right now.
Done.
Go home.
Oh my
Show's
God.
over.
Show's over.
Nothing
people.
else to see here.
This is it.
Okay. Really? Goodbye.
Peace.